Chapter 1 Talk, 2 key learning objectives. Assess the contemporary dynamics affecting communication contingencies. Eek, that is a mouthful. Basically, we are going to look at the factors that are challenging, the hurdles we need to overcome to communicate effectively as leaders. Second objective, evaluate the role of diversity in the workplace and its impact on communication practices. All right, here we go. So let's begin with this thought in mind. If you want to convince listeners that you have a good message for them, you must first convince them you are a good person. Author Quintilian. Folks, this is vitally important to the success of managerial communication. Throughout this term, I'm going to teach you countless strategies, how to communicate intentionally and concisely to the appropriate audience. However, all of that is only as good as the care and the emotion you put into that. We are emotional creatures. So much of our messaging at work points back to how we make that receiver feel. And when we hurt feelings, we gain nothing. In fact, we only set ourselves back. So please hold this with a loose grip as we move through chapter 1. Okay, first objective, communication contingencies. These are our 3 big challenges in today's workforce. Our communication needs to embrace diversity. It needs to address the competition and drive for quality. And above all things, it needs to be ethical. So let's break these 3 things down. First off, diversity. All right, gender, culture, age, and education. These are our 4 biggies that our communication needs to embrace. Reminder, what people do not know, they will make up. And their story is usually far worse than the actual scenario. So what you are not communicating is just as important as what you are. Make sure we are tackling gender, culture, age, and education in our workplace communication. So let's do it. Let's talk gender first from a traditional sense. Okay, traditional meaning male, female. Historically, men and women, male or female, have different perspectives. At work, we need to look at those as strengths and not adversity. So if traditional male stands back to back with traditional female, male has a 180-degree view, female has a 180-degree view. But together you have a 360-degree view. So don't shy away from your strengths, your perspectives, your preferences, but lean on your counterpart to make sure that you are including all genders in your messaging. So that's first from a traditional gender standpoint. Now let's look at gender from a modern day standpoint. There's a spectrum of gender. Not everybody's insides match their outsides, meaning they don't relate or connect or identify with their physical gender. Now, regardless how you feel about that, as a leader at work, we need to be inclusive in our language to all genders, wherever people land on that spectrum. The first thing we can do is mind our words. Words matter. Instead of calling out, "Good morning, ladies and gentlemen," "Good morning, guys and gals," let's use inclusive language. Let's say, "Good morning, team," "Good morning, everyone," right? Make that inclusive. Go to the plural pronoun because, yes, the majority of people may identify with their gender, but it's for that minority of folks who don't. The power of words. Make sure you are including them in your language. Second item, pronouns. Such a simple thing we can do as leaders. When I meet with a client or a class for the first time, I ask them to let me know if they have a preferred pronoun. I have made that part of my communication. Now, most people, I would guess 80%, say no, no preferred pronoun. But it's that 20% that say, "Yes, thank you for asking. I prefer they, them," or "I prefer she, her." Other things we can do is put your preferred pronouns on your email signature, or if you're a workforce that has name tags. That is just a simple nonverbal nod of inclusivity. So we need, number 1, under diversity, to encompass and include all gender. Secondly is culture, okay? Now, this is a big subject that we're just glimpsing at in chapter 1, so don't worry, we're going to dive deeper into this later in the term. But culture, as leaders, our communication has to be inclusive. And what I mean by that is it has to be psychologically safe. Culture, as we know, is complex. It's morals and codes and traits. It's how we were raised, where we were raised, who raised us. So oftentimes we oversimplify that to the observable, meaning how somebody dresses, the color of their skin, the language they speak, the food they eat. But that is just the observable traits. As you all know, everyone who's listening to this has probably had a stereotype heaped on them based off an observable trait, right? And nobody likes that. So culturally, we need to make sure that our language is inclusive, okay? And that it's creating psychological safety for our employees. Next up, we need to recognize age in our communication and probably more specifically how we communicate. Now, this week, our forum is going to be based on intergenerational communication. So I'm just going to give you a glimpse here. You're going to do the heavy lifting in your forum research this week. You're going to watch a TED Talk. But we have 5 generations at work right now. We have traditionalists. These are folks born between 1900 and 1945. We have boomers. These are folks born between 46 and 1960. We have Generation X, those born between 61 and 80. Then we have our dear millennials, born between 81 and 95. And then we have Generation Z, our newest entrants into the workforce. These are folks born between 95 and 2010. Now, there are key traits for each of these generations. Traditionalists are disciplined. They're very duty focused. Boomers aim for equality. They are ambitious. They are work centric. Generation X is efficient. They're independent. Millennials are extremely expressive, efficient, and highly educated. Generation Z are tech dependent. They have great ideas of inclusivity and community, and they live out their ideals. Now, again, this is just a snapshot, but you get where I'm going with this. Our communication, how we communicate, the technology we use or not use, the time we take or don't take, all of these things are going to land differently for different generations. Okay, and then next we have education. Folks, if you are in a leadership role or if you are not, you are communicating with the most educated workforce on record. Now, I live in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Very cool fact, we have over 100 languages spoke in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Now, yes, this speaks to diversity, but it also speaks to education. We are working with people who are smart. They are critical thinkers, folks that are going to ask questions, who need to understand the big picture, who are no longer satisfied with you're on a need to know basis. With that said, we need to up our communication game and not just communicate the what and the how, but the why and for whom. Quick stat, 2022, the Bureau of Labor indicates that nearly 60% of our workforce, 25 and older, have a bachelor's degree or higher. So just data to support the same concept. We are communicating to a smart group at work. Okay, second contingency, competition and drive for quality. We are working in an information-rich society, which means the good or service or product that we are providing, other people are providing that same thing. So with that said, consumers want the highest value, they want the lowest price, and they want the best terms. And they're able to find that. Gone are the days where we walk into the local Kmart and we pick up the product because it's available regardless of price, right? So with that said, that ups our communication game because we need to be communicating our values, our terms, our prices. You can see how communication is extremely complex because of the information age we live in. Okay, Ethics. Our third contingency is that of ethics. And folks, we will continue to talk about ethics throughout this term. Ethics is everything. Ethics need to be living and breathing and integrated into your communication. Now, I'm not saying this lets you off the hook for your behavior. Our behaviors need to match those ideals, those values, those things that we communicate to our employees. The root word of ethics is ethos. Ethos is your character, your customs. So your thoughts shape your behaviors shape your character. So let's begin at the very beginning. Let's begin with our thoughts and make sure we're translating our ethics into our words, our actions, and our behaviors. And as you know, the world we live in, hence the Wells Fargo meme, we live in a world of cynicism and mistrust. So there is little room for error. Gone are the days where we can kind of sweep our mess under the rug, right? Because we live in an age of information. So we are walking a finer line than we ever have ethically, which is a good thing. But our communication to our employees, our staff, our leadership team, it has to continually integrate our ethical culture and goals. Okay, so that is chapter 1. We talked about the dynamics affecting communication contingencies, specifically the diversity in the workplace. We talked about gender. We talked about age. We talked about diversity. And then we also talked about culture. Have an excellent week. Thank you.